Yo, what is good though? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. Like I said in my previous video, a nice little life change has allowed me the time to set aside so that I can make more videos for you guys. And I still have a ton of scripts that I've started and haven't finished, or finished and haven't started recording yet, so trust me when I say we've got a lot of things to talk about before Scarlet and Violet inevitably comes out in about a month's time from now. With all of that being said, if you guys want me to talk about something specific, hey, the best way to reach me is probably through the Discord, which is open to everybody. Also, as a quick heads up, if I decide to do a response video, the Discord usually knows about it first. So, if you want to get your responses prioritized, make sure to respond to me in the video ideas tab. Trust me, we're going to be doing a lot more of those. Okay, now that that's all laid out on the table, why don't we talk about what we actually came here to talk about today? Now, it is kind of weird that we actually never really got around to dissecting this, but in one of the recent trailers for Scarlet and Violet, they did reintroduce raid battles to us. I say reintroduced because, well, for those of you that don't know for some reason, we did have that as a primary mechanic in 8th gen. Raid battles, while technically introduced in Pokemon Go, made their real standing in Sword and Shield as one of its primary unique mechanics. And now, because of how successful it worked out in Pokemon Sword and Shield, despite popular belief, it has now made its way into Scarlet and Violet in its own way, and instead of battling Dynamax Pokemon, we are now taking on terrestrialized Pokemon. Now, as with every conversation that comes to Pokemon, there's going to be two sides to every conversation. There's some that think this is a very good thing, and some that think this is a negative thing. Personally, I see this as nothing but a good thing. However, I do have my concerns as to how this mechanic is going to work. So, without wasting too much more time, why don't we talk about some of my concerns regarding raid battles in Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. Now, while they didn't say it outright, in the trailer we can clearly see that these battles are going to be real time. For anybody that's confused as to what I mean by that, all that means is that instead of it being turn-based, where you pick a move, you attack, they pick a move, they attack, it's time-based. When it comes to most games that use this mechanic, that means that during battle, you would usually have some kind of meter that you wait to fill up before you could throw out your next attack. But you're not waiting for your opponent, you're just waiting for that meter. So, whenever that meter is up, then you can attack. Now, of course, this would also apply to your opponents too, which means that you are both participating in active time battle. Which usually means that you're probably going to want to have an idea of what move you're going to want to use next before that meter fills up so that you can get ahead of your opponent. For anybody that's really confused, I'm probably going to have some gameplay up of Pokemon Masters because that is one of the actual few games from the Pokemon Company that actively uses active time battles. Funny enough, I did fall off this game pretty hard, but I could never bring myself to delete it, so this is probably what you're going to be looking at for a majority of this video, but generally speaking, I do think that this is a great example as to what to expect when going into raid battles in Scarlet and Violet. Now, as some of you are longtime Pokemon fans, I'm sure that in the past you have asked for a huge change in formula when it came to the battles. Now, granted, you probably weren't exactly expecting gimmicks to be that change, but you know what? It was something, and it was something to look forward to every game. However, when people were asking for a huge change in formula, I'm pretty sure that this was along the lines of something that they were talking about. And I'll be completely honest, I am definitely one of those people that would not have been mad if active time battles became a thing for the mainline games. I'm sure I've more than told you guys by now that my favorite genre of video game is JRPGs, and one of the biggest ones that I've been playing recently did have active time battling as a part of the main mechanic. And I love it. It keeps you on your toes and it keeps you very engaged throughout the majority of the battle. I love Pokemon to death, but you gotta be honest with yourselves, we've been mindlessly pressing A for years now. Frankly, I see almost no downsides to making active time battles one of the primary mechanics, which is why I'm really looking forward to raid battles this time around. So what in the world are you prattling on about? This is supposed to be a concerns video. Why are you praising a new mechanic? Because despite all the news coverage that we've done, I haven't really got to talk in depth about it yet. But hold your horses, I'm getting to my point. Now initially, this is probably going to sound a little ridiculous, but hear me out. One of my primary concerns in this arena is the fact that we might actually end up enjoying raid battles over regular battles to an overwhelming degree. Despite all the new mechanics and gimmicks that we've gotten over the years, there are still plenty of people on the other side of the fence that do believe that we should have a much bigger change of pace. Being one of those people, I wouldn't be surprised if people ended up enjoying raid battles more than regular battles in general. Now don't get me wrong, that could absolutely end up being a good thing in of itself. We finally get that big change that everybody's asking for without having to change anything else. It's kind of a win-win. However though, and I might just be in my head about this one, so call me out on it if you want to, there is a very big possibility that this may overshadow a lot of the other good qualities about Scarlet and Violet. I could already see a ton of half-assed reviews saying things like, the story, who cares, raid battles, oh this neat new mechanic, who cares, raid battles. Why couldn't the rest of the game be like this, yada yada yada. Anyway, the point is, I don't want something to be so good that it bogs down everything else, because something tells me that this was definitely one of their primary focuses when developing this game. Now again, the idea in of itself is absolutely ridiculous. Trust me, I've thought this over before saying it out loud. This is just something that I really wanted to bring to the table to see if anybody else had any general thoughts on this. Hey, maybe you don't, that's totally fine, and we could just go ahead and move right along. Which is exactly what we plan to do. On to my next point. Now this next one here was without a doubt, easily, without question, one of my biggest problems with 8th gen, and I'm sure a lot of you can agree. We simply cannot have the same AI going into these raid battles like we did in Sword and Shield. Now don't get me wrong, in the previous game, raid battles were very fun to do with anybody online. Even if it wasn't your friends, going online to play with randoms was awesome. By the time everybody got to endgame, people were packing up Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon like it was fried rice. The beauty of the previous mechanic is that you got a hint as to what Pokemon you were going to battle. Sometimes you could make out the figure, sometimes you would just rely on the typing. Either way, people knew what Pokemon to bring to these raid battles, and then you could easily tackle whatever they brought out. It was a perfectly fine mechanic, until we had to rely on the AI. There were definitely plenty of cases in which it was just easier and faster to take on battles by yourself. Especially by the time the game died down a lot, not a lot of people were doing raid battles like that. So, naturally, if you wanted to battle alone, the game would supply you 3 different CPUs to battle alongside you to fill in the slots of other trainers. And naturally, you could not choose what Pokemon those trainers would be using. They would be using a completely random set of Pokemon. A majority of the time, the Pokemon would be something along the lines of Magikarp, Pikachu, I think Solrock and Lunatone, Hawlucha, Chansey, Togepi, Dhelmise, etc. Once again, I repeat, they were picked completely at random. So do me a favor real quick and go ahead and tell me what a Togepi, a Magikarp, and a Pikachu is going to do against a Gigantamaxed Grimmsnarl. I'll go ahead and give you a hint, pal. They're not doing very much. This is by far the most frustrating mechanic I have ever seen in a Pokemon game. If you don't have any friends that want to get on with you, or you just don't have the internet to go online and play with randoms, you get punished for it. Now early game it doesn't matter very much because you're battling little things like Banneries and Ghastlies and stuff like that. But by post game, when you're sitting there battling fully evolved Gigantamaxed Pokemon, it becomes a serious issue. Now initially you would probably think, okay, I just gotta go in, hit them as hard and fast as I possibly can before they can do any real damage to me. But like I said, again, by post game, that's not what you're worried about. You're just worried about your teammates surviving in this case. If the Pokemon that are present on the field faint at least 4 times, you get kicked out of the raid battle. Obviously, you as the player is going to pick a Pokemon with the advantage so that you can survive any attack that these Pokemon throw at you. The other Pokemon on the field will provide whatever they can, which, I regret to inform, has never been nearly enough. Putting it simply, these Pokemon were so weak that they could easily be one-shot by the Pokemon that were fighting, and it became a problem because they would die way too fast. Sometimes it would be hard to get through even half of the raid boss's health before realizing that they've gotten to the point where they've already killed 3 Pokemon on the field and they get like 3 turns by that point. That right there almost made raid battling by yourself unbearable by late game. It is not fair for the player to be punished for wanting to play by themselves. Which is why I am so adamantly stating that we cannot have this problem again. Now, going into Scarlet and Violet, I'm assuming that the raid battles are generally going to work the same, in which, if all Pokemon on the field die at least 4 times, you get kicked out. It makes sense. However, if we don't have access to stronger teammates at all, how are we going to do these raid battles? Now, I'm not saying that the CPU teammates should be overpowered. No, I get that they want to incentivize you to play with other people. That's always been the whole point of Pokemon. I understand. However, you gotta be reasonable and look at it from all angles. Maybe some people don't have internet access like that. Maybe somebody's really struggling to pay for Nintendo Online that month. Why should they be punished for that? As we progress in the game, the farther along we get, everybody should be getting stronger. Not just the CPUs that we fight in the mainline game, but also the ones we fight alongside in the raid battles. I'm just saying, yo, what is a Togetic going to do against a fully evolved Ampharos? That's not helpful. That Pokemon has 2 evolutions. You can give it one or the other at least so that it can hold its own. I don't need extremely powerful teammates. I need teammates that are capable of handling themselves so that I'm not sitting there struggling, worried that I won't be able to get what I need because I can't rely on the AI. So I guess the long and short of it is, give us better AI. Or at least give the AI better Pokemon to utilize, because those first stage evolutions, those are not going to be helping us at all in post-game. Just saying, Game Freak, I really hope you fix that one. Anyway, before I give myself an ulcer, why don't we start talking about another one of the problems that I've had. That issue being that it was extremely easy to overlevel. Now hold on, before you get all in a tizzy, let me explain myself. Now, if I'm being completely honest, this was as much as a problem as it was a convenience. Like, yeah, obviously, if you're gonna participate in numerous raid battles, why shouldn't you get rewarded for that? However though, because raid battling was completely limitless in Sword and Shield, so were the rewards, and 90% of those rewards were always experience candies. So, naturally, you could grind as much as you wanted and get as many experience candies as you needed to level up whatever Pokemon you wanted. And frankly, in the most recent Pokemon games, it's super easy to get over leveled and not really be punished for that because they've been super lenient with the whole, oh, you can't get a Pokemon over this level or they won't listen to you. That only really applies to traded Pokemon now. So naturally, in my first playthrough, like I'm sure a lot of you did, I absolutely abused the raid battle mechanic, got so overpowered that I was able to fly through the story in, what, a day or something like that? And then it was back to raid battling. Now, personally, I don't really mind the fact that it was limitless, but it did make it so easy to get strong that the rest of the game was no longer anything of a challenge. And it's a Pokemon game, so, you know, relatively speaking, it already wasn't that much of a challenge. Going forward, I think it would be beneficial if, at least in the early game, there was some kind of limit in place. Maybe we should have some kind of cooldown on how many raids you can do in a matter of hours or something. That way, we would do that specified amount of raids, collect our rewards, and then we would actually be inclined to go do something else. And I wasn't kidding when I said this should probably be a primarily early game thing. As you progress through the story, maybe that cooldown could lessen a lot more the farther you go. Maybe so that at least by the time you reach endgame with whatever story you're doing, you could have full access to it by post-game and you could do as many raids as you want, or at least close to. Since, you know, by the time you reach post-game, overpowered isn't a thing. You're just super strong now because you've beaten the game. Does that make any sense to you guys? Am I crazy for that one? You guys tell me. Either way, I do think that while it is nice to be rewarded for your efforts and going out of your way to really fully explore the mechanic and do everything that you can with it, getting over leveled doesn't really help the case of the game because then it takes away 90% of the challenge that probably wasn't really already there to begin with. But hey, if you disagree with me on that one, by all means tell me why. Now, I did have one final gripe here, but in reality, it's not that big of a deal. I ended up talking about the repetition of the mechanic and how that may end up passing over to this game. However, that's inevitable. If anything, given the fact that we're probably going to be walking away from a lot of these raid battles with completely new type terrestrialized Pokemon, I think it's going to take even longer for this one to get repetitive. So in reality, looking back, we don't really need to talk that much about this one. Which means that actually just about wraps it up for this video here. Overall, I completely welcome the raid battle mechanic back with open arms. After we had truly finished up with 8th gen, I was wondering for a long ass time what they would have to keep us coming back. And frankly, I could not tell you what that would have been because personally, I didn't believe that raid battles could be topped as one of the best things to come to the mainline series in a long time. If they were to tweak it just a little bit with pretty much anything that I talked about in this video, just a tad, I think that it could be a perfect mechanic, but you know what? I could be way in over my head about that one, so I'll let you guys decide on that. Oh yeah, that's right, you need the mic again, don't you? You know what? I'll make it super easy on you. Left hand or right hand? Left? Are you positive? Are you sure? Dude, incorrect. Here, it was in my right hand. If you picked this hand, we would have had to fight through 7 different dimensions of aliens just to get to the other mic. Just take this one. Just borrow mine. You go ahead, you turn that on, and you tell me what your guys' thoughts are on the raid battles going into Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Do you think that they're going to be anything like Pokemon Sword and Shield? Do you think that they're going to top the mechanic that was introduced in Sword and Shield? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always down there with you guys. But with that, I'm gonna go on and get the hell up out of here. I'd like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm outro. Thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!